RAID Shadowlegends is one of the most memed on games in gaming. And honestly, as someone who's been a competitive shooter player at the highest level for maybe 10 years now, rank 1 in Overwatch, played in contenders, won above all Marvel Rivals, I never saw RAID Shadowlegends as a game that I would get into personally. It's just, a gacha game, a mobile game. It's everything that I thought I would not like. But RAID Shadowlegends is a prime example of one of the earliest life lessons that we all should have learned in kindergarten, and that you should never judge a book by its cover. And yet it seems like in the world nowadays, we're all still doing that at a degree to which would surprise many people. And RAID Shadowlegends is an example of that just hits the nail on the head to a T. Today, I'm going to be talking about my thoughts as RAID Shadowlegends as a newer player. There's not many content creators that talk about what it's like to get into the game, and that can be, tough for newer players, but these content creators are great. I watch a ton of Ash, I watch a ton of Hell Hades, and they've helped me progress my account a ton, so big shout out to those guys. I love Nubs helping me with my Hydro team. It's so great seeing these people's perspective, and, obviously that's what most people want to watch, too. They want to watch the end game, and this is true of any sport or game. People like watching the best players in the world, and a lot of times people in the middle kind of get left behind for their experience and end up a little bit lost. So I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on what it's been like to progress in RAID Shadowlegends. We got a shard opening video in the background where I'll talk about my first mistake, and that's attempting a progressive chance for a newt in RAID, and man, did they get me on that one. I will not be doing that one again unless there's an event or a fusion I'm going for like the one this week. But let's talk a little bit about RAID, man. What does RAID get right? They get people to get into the game better than anybody else. The rewards, the new champions like Tagore, like Sun Wukong, who I had a code for 9 months ago for my community, and I didn't get him myself. Still don't have a Sun Wukong. I do terrible things for a Sun Wukong, let me tell you that, man. But, stuff like that to get people into the game, and they nail early game progression. Like, there's very clear phases of RAID Shadowlegends where you start out in the campaign, and it makes the game very approachable, where you learn the very basics, right? It's like a tutorial without being boring, and they got that right so well, where it's like you're playing through the story, you kind of get invested in the lore, you understand how you need to beat the campaign, you learn about typings, you learn the very bare minimum about artifacts, right? And that helps you so much when it comes to progression. Like, you feel like you're progressing, which RAID Shadowlegends does progression better than any game I've ever played, ever. And I've been, I've been one of the highest ranked hero shooter players for 10 years, right? If you look at the general population. So, that's been really fun to explore for me. Is, you get into the campaign, you get through it, and you start to get into the dungeons and the arena. And man, I remember the first time I ran into a UDK team, and I'm just like, what did this guy hit me with? Fear. I can't take a turn. I thought UDK was so OP I could never, ever figure out a way to counter UDK teams. And now, luckily, I've gotten to the point where I can, even though he can still be a very annoying little menace in the arena. Being able to approach RAID and slow and steady progress and learn at your own pace makes getting into the game super, super enjoyable, super fun. And again, like, human beings are all about progression. That's the name of the game. The bread and butter of RAID is progressing through the game. That's why you see them continue to add more content towards the late game as time goes on, because they're just extending the progression. It doesn't take away from early game players at all. RAID can be overwhelming. It really, really can be. So the fact that they divide the content into pieces based on where you are in the game, like, I didn't take on Clan Boss for a while until I learned, I need to take on Clan Boss for this gear. I didn't start my Arbiter missions for a while. I didn't even worry about Doom Tower for a while. I'm getting into Hydra 8 or 9 months later, and I've got some decent teams. I pulled some mythicals there where I'll probably make a video talking about like what it's like to learn about my Hydra team and like what I need to do, and same for Chimera. But RAID nails progression. That's what they do so well. They divide the parts of the game that you're in perfectly, and that helps a ton. Now, let's talk a little bit about things I wish RAID would do differently, man. Training your champions, dude. The book system is in drastic need of just some toned down, right? Half the battle is getting the champs in this game. And unless you're consistently farming Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss, which takes forever to get to, you're not going to get very many Lego tomes without buying them. And I get it. Plarium. You guys want to make your money. But could I at least choose where to spend my skill tomes instead of having it be RNG? So, like, when I have to, train Lanicus the Chosen for Fire Night Hard, so I finally have a Fire Night Hard team. I don't have to spend 11 unnecessary books when I only need to tome down one skill, and you make me do all those books. Like, that's just egregious, and that's just unfriendly to the user. You guys have so many different ways you can monetize with energy and all these other things that are just so worthwhile. Like, making books more accessible or giving players more customization choices would go a long way. This is why the game kind of doesn't have a bad reputation, but people don't want to get into it. Like, you guys have built an amazing game, and I think you would actually profit more off getting more players into the system to try to get the champions rather than making it so difficult to book them up after you get them, when, again, I can't even choose where my books go, right? Giving players control to let them curate their experience would be something that would benefit the RAID Shadowlegends community tremendously. And coming from a new player, that's low-hanging fruit that won't really hurt your bottom line, because a lot of people will still buy the tomes, but you can sell the tome packs for the same amount, but let people choose where they want to use them. I think that would go such a long way. Now, epic tomes are generally much more accessible and easier to get than legendary tomes, but as you guys add more mythicals into the game, and who, by the way, are not that tome heavy, I think that's a good way to actually look to monetize. And maybe you can monetize relics or other stuff like that in the end game, but making that progression more accessible to players will keep more players in the ecosystem, because you guys have got monetization pretty much at every corner in this game, every pop-up, everywhere. It is the most egregious I've ever seen, but don't let that hide the fact that there's still a very fun, in-depth, strategy-based game behind all of that. I'd love to see them lower the champions, the books for a champion, especially like you have masteries. And I guess moving on, Minotaur, man. I mean, I know it makes you guys money again, but with relics coming in the game, like, can we not overhaul Minotaur? Because, again, it's the fact that it's capped at 15 when, you know, again, every other dungeon goes up to like 20. Just let us farm it. Like, we're still using energy. Like, we still have to use our energy, which limits playtime, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, to actually get access to that content, access to that stuff, unless we want to pay gems. So, you know, I think it actually would benefit. It would be a good quality of life thing. Like, I think if RAID went in and did more quality of life things that were consumer friendly, they could see even more benefit from monetary gain and monetization policies kind of when you get to the late game, whether it be via relics or whether it be via other things. Like, there's plenty of opportunity there for them to do that. So I would say my next complaint is Minotaur and masteries. Like, it's just too much of all. It takes too long. It's not efficient, man. And the game has really moved on very, very, like, the game has moved on to relics and other stuff now as well that would let you make that a little bit more accessible and efficient. Because, again, you can still charge more energy for it, but, like, you're just wasting everyone's time, and some good faith for the players would go that way. Their events, man. RAID Shadowlegends has the best events of any game I have ever played, man. I started out, I think it was the Adeline Chase was when I started playing, maybe. Or I think I did an integration for them with Rhonda. I just missed Rhonda. What a bummer, right? I would have loved Rhonda. She's so damn good, especially for, like, Fire Night. Oh, I could have used her. But I started playing really a lot more around Adeline, and then I got Ninja after. And, man, like, those events were great. Then we went into Loki. And the Asgard event, that was fire. He-Man and Skeletor, are you kidding me? I remember being at Macaulay Sports Camp when I was a kid, and they had a He-Man arcade game, like classic arcade style, like from the 80s, like a machine that I used to play on. Awesome. And then the Alice in Wonderland event was amazing, dude. S tier. I haven't seen a company nail events and adapt different IP to their game better than Plarium. Like, champion design in this game, the lore, the identity. Champion identity is so peak. SSS plus tier for RAID Shadowlegends. This is why the company just sold for $400 million back to a European country out of, I think it was a gambling company in Australia. Man, I mean, they nail it. So shout out to all you artists who work on this shit. You guys are top notch. Like, you guys are on par with Blizzard Entertainment, who's, like, known for their polish. I mean, Jesus, guys, seriously, hats off to you if I had a hat on. You guys absolutely nail it. And I think the lore and all that stuff is a big part of why people are just so into this game and why I'm so into this game. I'm a whale now. I'm Moby Dick. They're gonna write stories to kindergartners about how much money people are spending on this game, and I am no different. I'm not shaming anybody. I'd be the pot calling the kettle black because, damn, I have been spending. It's embarrassing and it's concerning, but shit, I love the game. I love this game. It is fuego. It's so good. I'm turning into Mickey Mouse. Welcome back to the Disney Channel RAID Shadowlegends. I mean, come on. It's so good. It's such a good game. It's everything about this game except for the monetization. is just so peak. And now, I guess another subject that I want to talk about as an early game player, mid game player, which we are going to get into some gameplay, you know, in the later videos to come, where I talk about some of my pulls and like how I'm trying to form my teams and what goes through my head. But what would be so much better for this game is, PvP in this game is just fundamentally flawed. It just is. I think Tag Team Arena is the biggest waste of potential, and maybe I think Siege could do a lot better too. It'd be so cool if Tag Team Arena let you do like a tag team with like 2 of your friends' champions. Like you duo the content, right? And 2 of you, so there's 2 of you, and both of you put forward 2 champions, and you can do it with your clan, maybe make it something about the clan. I don't know. Something like that could just make the game or PvP much more interesting. I guess that might not need to be Tag Team Arena, but like it would be cool to see something like that. I think the social aspects of your clan and clan v clan and like a Chimera clash and Hydra clash, like that kind of stuff, especially for late game players, is just so good for player retention, and it makes things so interesting. I'd like to see them do more stuff like that. I've been trying Live Arena. Speed is just too important in there. I thought I'd like Live Arena more than I would, but I don't know. It's just not quite what I want it to be, because the regular arena is just Arbiter teams and like the meta champions towards the top, just kind of dominating. Now, I do have a Volcanos Fumer team that I just need one demon spawn support that's better than Dur the Hungerer, like a Duchess or a Wither, and I am going to be frying Arbiter teams. I can't wait, dude. Volcanos is so fucking good. You guys have no idea how good this character is. I'll make a video showcasing how good he is, even for like a mid-game player. He's nuts at countering some of these go first teams. But yeah, that content of approaching the arena, it's very unapproachable. It's not competitive, right? And as somebody who's competed at the highest ladders in the world and some of the more competitive games in the world consistently for 10 years, whether it be Minecraft PvP when it was at its prime, hitting rank 1 NA in Overwatch, playing in contenders, hitting 1 above all, top 100 Marvel Rivals, like competitive queues are like my bread and butter. And it's just like you can't take this game seriously to the same degree that you take one of those games, and there's nothing you can really do about it, but making more PvP content accessible and fun is a good way to go about that. Now, speaking of accessibility and content, one thing I think this game could do a lot better is more content like Doom Tower and Curse City that actually lets you play the game more. Like, you can limit the rewards playing them, but and make it harder to get them. But having something that we could just get on and play for hours every day and not worry about energy, not worry about Doom Tower keys, because it's not like the Doom Tower keys are paywall. Like, you can't buy more. Like, you have a set amount, but you guys have so many amazing champions, amazing different ways to do things. Like being able to free regroup for Hydra and try stuff, free regroup for Chimera and just try stuff. Like, get people on your game. Like, give us more stuff to play consistently besides like paywalling energy. If they could do that, like this game, if they made the game more approachable and more efficient to play for the end user, without really hurting them, I don't think it would hurt their monetization. I think it would actually help them because it would encourage it and it would help player retention, right? So giving us more stuff to do for free without actually charging us or making us like have to pay or be limited, like limiting your playtime. I get a scarcity model can work, especially for dungeons if you're farming artifacts and useful stuff like that, but give us more stuff to just play around with, right? Like up the amount of siege battles that we can do. And don't limit the amount we can play. Let us play a ton of siege. Let us do a ton of stuff. You can always change the end result of the rewards, but let us play the game more, man. Like, you have an awesome game, and I think a lot of content creators really let us play the game more. You have an awesome game. I love playing Raid. Like, let us play more. Like, you have all the monetization already with shards, with 2x events, with tomes, all this stuff, right? Why does every part of the game have to be either playwalled or paywalled? I think it'd be really cool to see more content come out